So we have discussed about various points, actually basic points about aghoris in our previous episode of Knowell series by Stratify India. In this episode of Knowell series, we will be continuing our discussion from previous episode, and we will be discussing other topics which we have missed in our previous episode. So it's part 2 of that particular episode, AGHOR Tantra and AGHOR Sadhus. And in this episode, we will be providing you very interesting information about aghoris. For example, in this episode of Knowell series, we will be talking about some rituals. Also, we will be talk about cannibalism. Also, we will be providing you information about their sign, which is skull. So, skull is sign of aghoris. So, why its signature of sadhus means aghoris specially, and why do they keep with them? So we'll be providing you information on that topic also. In addition, we will be talking about their medicinal practices which they perform to people, and also they cure them. So there is this very popular healing process which is performed and done by them. So episode is very open-minded. There is no complex informations which we will be providing here. So don't worry, if you have not listened our previous episode, there is no confusion which you will get from our side. But it's recommended to listen that episode because there are some basic informations which you may want to hear, and you can't specially miss it if you are interested in AGHORI Sadhus. So let's start this episode with our very first point, which is the ritual practices which they perform. So one of the most famous practices of the aghori is cannibalism. So it must be noted that the aghori do not deliberately kill people for their fleshes. So they don't kill people with intention of eating flesh or getting flesh or use their skull or their body parts or anything like that. So there is no intention of killing people, murdering them. They just eat flesh from dead bodies only. So it is the flesh of corpses brought to the cremation grounds that they consume. So this human flesh is often eaten raw, or sometimes they roast it over an open fire. So that's how they eat flesh, or not even just human flesh. That's how they eat also animals' flesh. So there is no difference. Actually, they see no difference in positive and negative things. There is no positivity or negativity. There is no good or there is no evil. So they see no difference, and I think that is the main reason why they eat human flesh is just like any other flesh on earth. So they see no difference between animals and humans. So that's the main reason behind this particular practice of eating human flesh or cannibalism. The consumption of the flesh of corpses is an affirmation of the aghori's belief system. Apart from human flesh, the aghori also known to drink urine and eat feces. These practices supposedly help to kill the ego and derail the human perception of beauty. So I think that's the main reason why they actually perform such things, and these things are actually very weird because you know that if you see things are happening like this in front of your eyes, you will get amazed. And it's weird to notice such things when it's happening in front of your eyes, of course. So they do such things for particular reasons, and this is the reason of doing this very weird practice. So they want to just kill their ego and they want to be focused in their life, their sadhana, and for that particularly sadhana purposes only they do such things. Another aghori practice is the sunning of clothes. So aghori often move around with nothing but a loincloth, and at times they also roam around nudes only. So it's similar to naga sadhus. If you don't know who are the naga sadhus, then you must want to hear our previous episode of Knowell series or part 1 of this particular episode, in which we have discussed about that particular point. So we have actually differentiated naga sadhus and aghoris. So anyways, let's continue this episode only for now. So this act is meant to allow the aghoris to overcome their feelings of shame, and is also aimed at the renunciation of the material world and attachment to material objects. Also, additionally, aghoris smear themselves with ash from human cremated remains, and the use of human ashes is meant as imitation of Shiva and is believed to protect the aghori from diseases. So there are such things which they do for some very understandable points. So they use ashes for this particular purpose. Now let's talk about this sign and this skull, which is their of course sign, and we will be talking about the relation between this skull and aghori. So in addition to human ashes, the aghori also use other human remains, most notably the human skull. The skull or kapala is the real sign of the aghori, and once initiated, an aghori will go in search of this object only. The skull is then used as a bowl for all the aghori consumes. They also share this bowl with animals such as dogs and cows. According to one myth, Shiva once decapitated one of Brahma's heads and was forced to roam about the outskirts of society while carrying the head. Therefore, seeking to emulate Shiva, the aghoris also carry human skulls with them. It has also been suggested that the aghoris keep human skulls due to the belief that after death, the life force of deceased clings in the top of the skull. So these are their belief for that particular practices. Furthermore, the aghoris believe that with the use of certain mantras and offering, especially alcohol, they are able to summon the deceased spirit and gain control over it. So they, by the way, they do all these practices just for them. There is no intention of harming any other people, any kind of society, any kind of environment. So there is no effect of their practices on environment, on society, on any other people. So they do this all practices just for them. So it's meant for them and it just works for them. So there is no any particular reason for doing such things. Now let's talk about the actually practices of medicine which they perform. So aghoris are also known for their practices of medicine. Their healing processes comprise of purification. People often come to these sadhus in order to be treated for diseases when Western medicines fail to them. So when these English medicines which we buy from drugstore or medical store gets failed and just doesn't work in human blood, then aghoris come to help those people, and they just do some kind of tantra vidya, or they just do some practices, and they will give them some medicine, or they will just chant some mantras, and they will do a healing process. And after that healing process, one will get cured from that particular disease. So this particular practices of providing cureness from that particular disease is very popular because of their technique to actually heal them. So these patients believe that the aghoris can treat them by transferring health to their bodies. This is known as a form of transformative healing, and implementation of this practice is possible due to heightened spirituality of the mind and body of an aghori sadhu. So they use their spiritual power, their mental power, their physical power, also their cosmic power to actually cure people and cure the one with disease. So they transform health from their bodies. So they just exchange health from diseased people and they will get cured. So by the way, there is no any kind of proof of this particular process. So it's myth only. There is I am not saying that this is factful information. So it is myth, but there are certain things which can be believed uh, by multiple people's opinion. So there are majority of people who actually claims that they got cured by this particular aghori sadhu's practices, and they were not able to get cured from any kind of other medical treatments or very expensive medicines, but they got cured just by some mantras and just by some uh, practices by aghori sadhus. So after this all of stuff like eating human flesh, I mean cannibalism, and providing medicinal practices or this healing process, even this skull, carrying this skull particularly, or this sign, their main intention of life is to actually meet the god, the moksha, which we all know, and that's what they actually want. So uh, both of us, even aghori sadhus and normal human, have same particularly goal to actually meet the god, but their lifestyle is different, and we know that we live very differently and they live very differently. They do perform very strong tantra vidyas, very strong aghor tantras. They perform very hard rituals. They do very hard practices. Instead we do very soft practices. We do very very different practices, and our way of seeing god, treating god, is very different than actually theirs method. So that's where the difference comes, but overall their perspective, their goal is also same. So there is no difference actually between them and us. So that's it for this particular podcast of Knowell series. I hope you loved it. If you want to know more about aghor tantra, then make sure to comment in YouTube, so that we'll make sure to come up with part 3, in which we will be talking about aghor tantra. That's it for today's episode, and I will meet you in next podcast with very interesting, factful and trustworthy information. Thank you so much for listening to me. I will meet you in next podcast.